We've been able to do a brief introduction to the matter of interest, and we did this by effectively looking at what we had done in our grade 8 in simple interest. We come to the main work for today, which is called compound interest. In real life, what you have is interest that is compounded. What's the idea behind compound interest? This is the understanding of compound interest. That is, I imagine that at the end of the first year, I have made a certain amount of money. Or, for instance, now it can go two ways. It can be interest that comes to you. It could be interest that goes to somebody. For instance, if you borrow money from somebody, or you meet a money lender and you receive borrowed money from the person, what's going to happen is this. When you're paying back that capital, call it capital or principal, the money you're paying back will be the interest plus the principal. You're not going to pay the person back the same amount of money. For instance, I could say, I could give 1,000 naira to somebody, just a hypothetical one, and I say, when you're paying back, you must pay me 1,100. So what it means is that I have paid an interest of what? 100 naira to it. That's what we saw in simple interest. But in life, this is not always true. What happens is this. The interest is now being collected. For instance, when you keep your money in the bank, at the end of the first month, the interest you have made is added to the principal. And then we work another interest on it. It comes to the second year. At the end of the second year, you have made some money again. The interest is added to the previous principal. So what you see in compound interest is a situation where the interest keeps increasing as the amount you get keeps increasing. So if at the end of the first year you made 100 naira, you put your money somewhere and you got 100 naira added to the 1,000 naira. The concept of compound interest says that by the time you take it for another 1 year to the second year, what will happen now is that you're not going to be having 1,000 naira anymore. You now have what? 1,100. So simple interest will now be calculated on that 1,100. So let's write some things on the board. Compound interest is accumulated interest over a period. It's accumulated interest over a period. So let's take that. Compound interest is interest accumulated over a period. Now, another interesting fact about compound interest is this. The time considered is always 1. I will explain what that means. The time, you could be told to calculate the compound interest over 3 years, yes. But when you're solving, you will take it 1 year at a time. So at the end of the first year, what is the compound interest you have gotten? You add it to the second year. You get another value, and at the end of the day, you get what has accrued over the period. It is better when something is compounding than when the interest is what? Simple. So we'll take a problem, and then as we solve the problem, we'll be able to see what's happening. And I'm trusting that as we solve that problem, we'll be able to see compound interest better. Now, it's important for you to remember that when we talk about amounts, principal, and interest, I started by saying that when we mention interest, there are 2 types of interest. We can have simple interest, or we can have what? Compound interest. Now, there is an amount you get when you consider simple interest. That amount is simply the simple interest plus the principal. when they mention amount here, they're talking about the amount at the end of the period of what? 2 years. I want you to keep that in mind. So the amount here would be the compound interest plus the principal. But with this method we're going to use to solve, the first thing we get is the amount. So how do we get the compound interest? That amount we are going to get after the number of years we are considering, we will now do what? Say that amount minus the original principal. So in solving this, I will be careful to note certain things, so you watch carefully. I will start by saying the principal is what? 40,000. The rate is what? 8%. Is that right? Now, I will call this the interest, I1. Interest for the first year. Let's watch. Interest for the first year. So that will give me 40, which will be equal to principal times rate over 100. Somebody say, what happened to the time? Remember I said earlier that what happens in that of compound interest that we calculate the interest per the period. And because we are calculating interest for that period, we do not consider what? The full period. We look at what happens every interval, every year. So at the end of the first year, what happens? It will be principal times rate over 100. Even if I put t here, that time is what? 1. Is that clear? That time is what? 1. So we come here, it will be what? 40,000 times 8 divided by 100. So that will be 400 times 8, which will give me what? 3,200. So this is the interest for the first year. Now, the interest of the first year plus. So what is the amount at the end of this year? So I can come here and say A1, which is the amount after the first year, and that will be equal to what? The principal, 40,000 plus the interest. So I can say principal plus interest of the first year, and that will give me what? 40,000 plus the interest of the first year, which is 3,200. So when I add this, the amount at the end of the first year will be 43,200. Now, if you are not seeing clearly what we have done, remember your primary school approach. It's important. That's why you were taught this, so you can easily see what has happened. So this one you have gotten, which is your A1, becomes the principal for the second year. The principal for the second year is the amount of the first year. Can we take that? The principal for the second year becomes the amount of the first year. So that will give me what? 43,200. 43,200. Alright, so the principal of the second year is the amount of the first year. So I will now try to look for the interest of the second year. I2 means interest of the second year. Now, I'm only trying to teach you what we call subscripts. I2, 2 is a subscript. It's a way of passing very important information in mathematics. So this will be equal to what? Principal of the second year times the, what they call it now, the rates. The rate is still the same, the rate does not change. Over what? 100. And some of us are trying to adjust to this method, don't worry. By the time we start solving lots of questions, you just discover that you have adjusted. So this will now give me what? 3,200 times what? 8, is that not? Yes. Divided by 100. So it's covered that this 100 can cancel this one out easily. So I come here, I go to my old school approach. I I multiply this. Are you seeing that? So this will give me 6, carry off 1, 3 times 8 will give me what? 4 plus 1, that's 5. I carry what now? 2. 4 times 3 will give me what? 32 plus 2, that's 34. So I will come here and say that the interest is what? 3,456. But that's not where the problem ends. I will come here now and look for amount of second year. The amount of the second year is the amount you are looking for. So if you have said 3 years, it will be, you will do till you get the amount of the third year. If you have said 4 years, you will do till you get the amount of the fourth year. If you have said 5 years, you will do till you get the amount of the fourth or fifth year, as the case may be. Alright, so amount of the second year will now be what? The principal of the second year plus the interest of the second year. At this point, I will advise you as my student, don't add as if you are seeing very well. Add as if you are blind. Who is looking at me? Add as if you were blind. So what does that mean? I'll come here. I remember my primary school, very effective method, and I add. You can't miss your answer if you add like this. Cannot. Can't. So this will be 6, 5, 6, 6, 4. So that will be 46,656. That's what you're going to have. So the amount they ask you to look for is actually this amount, which is what you get at the last year is what? 46,656. How do you get your compound interest? So compound interest will be equal to, let's say interest, okay, sorry about that. Compound interest will now be equal to amount, which is in this case is what? A2 minus, or let me say amount minus what? Amount minus what? Principal. So, in order not to forget this, just remember that the compound interest is simply, what is the amount? Remove the principal. What is the amount? Remove the principal. So I imagine I am blind. So I'll come here again. This answer I got here, 26,656 minus 40,000. So what my answer be? My answer becomes 6,656. That is the compound interest. It's a very interesting aspect of math, but it requires effort. It requires what? Effort. So that's for question 1, and then I want you to digest this while we look at maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Okay, we'll solve the question together. I guess some of us have already started solving, so you just check where you may have made an error and then you correct yourself. So look at this. The principal, remember we said that for 3 years, we're going to have what? 3 steps. So we start by saying the interest for the first year will be equal to the principal times the rate over 100. So how do we do that? The principal is what? 100,000 times the rate, which is 10, divided by 100. And if you do that carefully, you're going to have 1,000 times 10, which means that my answer will be what? 10,000. So this is what I'm going to use now to get the amount. So the amount at the end of the first year will now be equal to the principal plus the interest of the first year. And this will be 100,000 plus 10,000. And that obviously will give me what? 110,000 at the end of the first year. Alright, so we're done with the first one. So the second one, this is for the second year. So sometimes they require you to say second year or third year or whatever, but I really don't bother myself so much. So, but let's say for second year, so that you have a perspective to what we are doing. Now, for second year, the principal P2 will be equal to A1. The amount we got from the first year is what we use as the principal for the second year. So the interest of the second year, which is I2, will now be what? The principal of the second year times the rates all over 100. So that will give me what? 110,000 times 10 divided by 100. And that will give me what? 11,000. Are you seeing that? So the interest for the second year will be what? 11,000. The interest for the second year will now be what? 11,000. So the amount for the second year will now be equal to what? Here I will switch mode so that I can do my addition properly. It will be the principal of the second year plus the interest of the second year. That will give me what? 110,000 plus. Okay, so for the second year now, the amount will be 110,000 plus 11,000. That will give you 121,000. So this amount is what I'm going to use now as my principal for the third year. So for third year, I hope you can write like this. Nobody will penalize you. Nobody will penalize if you write like that way. So for third year, it means that the principal of the third year is the same thing as the amount of the second year. The principal of the third year is the same as the amount for the second year. So what would that be? The interest of the third year now will be the principal of the third year times the rate over 100. So with that, principal for the third year is what? This one we've just got in here. So 121,000 times the rate, which is 10, divided by what? 100. So I can cancel out. Notice that in cancelling, I didn't cancel this one out. Although you can actually cancel this and cancel one from this, you still get the same result. So at the end of the day, I'm going to have 12,100 as the interest for the third year. So we proceed from there to try to handle what the amount will be. So the amount of the third year will be what? The principal of the third year plus the interest of the third year. So what does that give you? That will be 121,000 plus 12,100. So we can add that, and that will give me 0, 0, 1, 3, 3, 1. So that will be 133,100. So this is the amount of the third year. Now that amount of the third year is the amount we are told to look for as it regards, as it pertains to compound interest, or the amount when we're dealing with compound interest. So the amount is always what you get at the last, is what you get at the end of the third year. So this will be what? 133,100. So we've gotten the amount. Another crucial thing here is to get the compound interest. So the compound interest will be equal to what? The amount. So that will be A3 minus, let's call this A3 minus the principal. What is the principal? 100,000. So that will be 133,100 minus 100,000. So that will be 33,100. 33,000 what? 100. So the compound interest, is equal to what? 33,100. So that's what the compound interest is going to be for this particular question. So let's have you digest what we have done so far. Okay, thank you for enjoying the class today. It's been an interesting one. We've been able to look at simple interest, compound interest, and we yet have two important aspects to go. The aspect of depreciation and what? Inflation, which are real life occurrences in commercial arithmetic. So from here in Mamu, we're signing out and trust that in our next class, you will be better informed. Thank you very much. See ya.